You're all set.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Town Manager Preliminary Screening Ad Hoc Committee meeting. I'm also going to read the Zoom disclosure for folks. So pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20, the Acts of 2021, an act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting of the Town Manager Preliminary Screening Ad Hoc Committee for the Town of Bridgewater will be fully remote and accessible to the public through remote participation to the greatest extent possible. There will be no in-person attendance permitted. Citizens who wish to tune in the meeting may do so via Zoom. And that Zoom link, I believe, has been made available via the town website, and I see a few of our citizens present. So that looks like it's in order. So I will take a motion for item B, approval of the minutes from previous meeting,
So moved.
Second.
seconded by Councilor Perry. We'll do a roll call vote, please, Deborah.
Okay. Counselor Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor Chase,
Yes.
and Counselor Perry.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. We will move to item C, citizens' comments. If any citizens wish to speak, we'll ask that citizens just keep their comments to 3 minutes. And a reminder that the ad hoc committee members will not respond to citizens' comments. And so if you wish to speak, I think the easiest way maybe to do this would be if folks could make a motion to raise their hand via Zoom, we can call on folks in order.
No one has raised their hand yet. Somebody by the name of Mary's coming in. I don't know if it's Mary McGrath. No one has raised their hand.
Okay. Thank you, Debbie. We will move to item for the interviews. And just so folks are aware, we have 3 consulting companies that will interview this evening. Each of these interviews will be roughly 45 minutes. We'll start with the committee introducing themselves to the firm.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
out of an abundance of caution, I am very frightened of the open meeting law. If Ms. McGrath has shown up, there is the quorum of the council. At this point, you'd probably have to have Dr. Perry call a meeting to order of the council.
It has it on the agenda, Tim. So I think we're all set.
But he has to call the meeting to order, and it has to then be adjourned properly as well, I believe. Sorry, if you guys want to risk it, that's up to you.
No, that's fine. I'll again.
Is it Mary though? Do we?
Is it confirmed that it's Mary?
It's me.
Okay, that's fine. I will call this meeting of the Bridgewater Town Council to order.
Thank you. Sorry for the procedural stuff, but
Not a problem, Tim. Better safe than sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Perry. So back to the interview format. As I mentioned, we'll have 3 groups that will interview tonight, each 45 minutes in length. We'll start by doing individual committee introductions quickly from the committee members. I'll call on folks to give that introduction. We'll then move to firm introduction. So we'll give each firm a 10-minute opportunity to introduce themselves and their company, and then we'll move to questions from the council, from the committee. We'll do that for all 3 groups, and then we'll have another opportunity for citizens open forum at the end. So Debbie, if you would allow the first group to come in.
I'm letting in Buzz and Alan Gould. Mark Lindy has also joined the meeting. And they should be, all right, there's Alan. And and Buzz should be okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Gould, for joining us this evening. My name is Paul Murphy. I'm the Vice President of the Town Council of Bridgewater. I'm going to go around and give each committee member an opportunity to quickly introduce themselves to you. We'll follow that up with 10-minute opportunity for an introduce yourself. Also your firm within that 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up by asking you folks a few questions if that's okay. We have roughly 45 minutes together tonight, and happy to answer any questions that you may have as well too.
Great, thank you.
So as I mentioned, my name is Paul Murphy. I serve as the Vice President of the Bridgewater Town Council. This is my second year in office. And I'll pass it to Councilor Chase, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And my name is Fred Chase. I'm a member of the Bridgewater Town Council. I have been a Bridgewater resident for about 36 years. And I'm a past president of the Bridgewater Town Council. I'm not sure what other pertinent information I can provide to you, but I'm a fairly recent retiree, and I have in the council. I'm a member of the Economic Development Committee, Community and Economic Development Committee, and the Rules and Procedures Committee, and I'm happy to answer any other questions about my background that you might have, but just those few words to introduce myself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Councilor Robinson.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Susie Robinson here. I am a counselor at large and on this council here, and I am in my second year of a 3-year term. I have previously served on our financial committee in town, as well as our ad hoc master plan committee. And Fred, you just mentioned something that I thought was helpful. Oh, and I'm also the chair of the Community and Economic Development Committee for the council. And by trade, I do marketing professionally. So great to meet you. Thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. Dr. Perry.
Hi, Dr. Kevin Perry. I'm the current president of the Bridgewater Town Council, born and raised in town, local chiropractor, and been on the council between 6 and 7 years. Did a 4-year stint, a brief interim to move within town, and then got back on. So, but yeah, current president, chair of the Downtown Revitalization Committee on Human Economic Development, and one other committee that escapes my mind right now. But yeah, so very nice to meet you. Look forward to speaking with you briefly here.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Yes, Tim Fitzgibbons, chairman of the Bridgewater Rainham Regional School Committee. I am from Bridgewater. I've previously served on the council for about 10 years, something like that. Went through this the last time the council hired a town manager, and apparently the town council thought it was important to have a voice from the school and somebody who's been through it before to be here. And I look forward to hearing more from you and doing the right thing for Bridgewater. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Fitzgibbons. Before I turn it over to you all to introduce yourselves, I just want to make you aware, as you can probably see, that there are members of the public that are attending the meeting currently, and a few other council members. The meeting is obviously accessible to the public currently and will be recorded for later to be distributed online. So I'll turn it over to Municipal Resources to give a 10-minute roughly introduction, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the committee.
All right, great. Well, thank you. So as you know, my name's Alan Gould. I'm president of Municipal Resources. We're known as MRI, Municipal Resources, Inc., pretty much. So the business is about 35 years old. I joined it about 15 years ago as the vice president after a career in law enforcement, as a retired police chief, and as a town administrator. Born and raised in Massachusetts, Andover to be exact. And for the last, I guess it's now 8 years, I've been president of the company. So I directly engage and oversee all of our recruitments. Although MRI's focus, I would say, is predominantly New Hampshire and Mass, we've done recruitments as far south as Georgia and as far north as the Canadian border. Most often that happens when we have people that know us from up here that have relocated And they've gone to other places and they've said, you know, they really like what we do and would we help them out in Georgia or wherever it is. With that, I think that's probably enough about me. So I would turn it over to, we'll start with Buzz, and Buzz can introduce himself, and then Bob.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be meeting with you folks tonight. I'm Buzz Stapchinsky. I've been with MRI for about 8 or 9 years. Prior to that, I was the town manager in Andover, Massachusetts for 25 years, and then a town manager in Wilmington, Mass before that. So I've got 35, about 40 years of active management experience, and have been doing scores of these kinds of recruitment projects with Alan and Bob for the last 8 or 9 years.
My turn?
Yes.
Good evening. I'm Bob Mercier. I've been working with Al since 2013. Interesting story. I was an interim town administrator after I had retired in Wayland. And Alan said to me, he says, "Hey, when you're done with this gig, you want to come to work for me?" And I said, "Alan, I retired." So anyway, so I've been with MRI since 2013. I've worked with Buzz on all the Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island recruitment. Most of my career was in Burlington, Massachusetts. I was also the that's as a town administrator. I was a town manager in Billerica, Massachusetts, and I've had a couple of smaller gigs in smaller communities. I just mentioned Wayland, also Acton, and I started out, I'm not going to tell you how long ago, in Maynard, Massachusetts, as their first town administrator.
So this is what I kind of think of as our A team, particularly when it comes to Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And they've been doing it exclusively with MRI. We've refined the process over the last many years. As I said, I've been with the firm for 15 years now, either as the vice president or the president, and I've recruited kind of top talent to our company. And Bob and Buzz, they're very engaged in municipal management and municipal government in Massachusetts. And that's why they're so valuable to us. They know who's out there. They know how to talk to these people. We do a lot of recruitments and I'll say some, really nice high-end communities that you'd all know. And we don't just sit back and wait for the resumes to come in. Particularly Bob and Buzz go out and they actively recruit people that they think would be a perfect fit for whatever particular community it is that has engaged us.
And if I may, Alan, we have worked in communities with colleges and universities. We did the search in North Andover about 5 years ago. North Andover has Merrimack College in their town, as well as several private schools. So we're familiar with the sort of the town gown issues that can come up with municipalities like yours, with colleges and universities that are integrated into the community, like Bridgewater State is with you folks.
Yeah, just an add-on to that. We also did Dartmouth down on the South Shore, which has University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. So to Buzz's point, we are familiar with that town gown connection. And I do know that in terms of your situation, because I've talked to a number of people in Bridgewater, the relationship seems to be fine at this point, which is great. We consider, as we look at the overall value a community presents to your next manager, that to us is a real asset, that you have a university in your community. It's one of those assets that play well to managers who are looking to move to that next step. So we kind of enjoy that. That's a credit to you, by the way, as a community, that you have that institution in the community, and it's going to help with the recruitment.
And Alan, if I may, just a couple of data points. We recently finished up your neighbor there, Lakeville. Did their search actually for the second time, and an up-and-coming town administrator will be in place there shortly. But also at Lexington, we finished up Lexington several weeks ago, and just to let you know, we had 24 candidates in Lexington, and we took ended up taking 9 to the screening committee, and the select board. I think they interviewed 6 candidates, and then of course you're familiar with Barnstable County, and there we had 30 candidates for Barnstable County. And what was unusual about that one was they had a residency requirement. Not a lot of municipalities have that. They had 30 candidates, and the 6 candidates were interviewed by the Barnstable County board.
As long as Buzz brought it up, and it may answer a question that you may have coming up, they're talking about, 24 or 30 candidates. Well, back when I joined MRI, so 15, maybe even 10 years ago, we'd get 100 applicants for a position such as yours in Bridgewater. And that has just dropped off drastically. There's kind of a generation that isn't very interested in town management, which leaves us with a younger generation that is, but a lot of times they don't have the seasoning or the experience that you need for that top position. To me, it's not about the size of the pool, it's about the quality of the pool. And a lot of that is defined by the direct recruitment that we do, the outreach that we do. So I just thought that was kind of important to get out there, because most people ask, how many candidates are we going to get? And I'll say, well, 10 or 12 years ago, I would expect 100. Now we'll expect, and let's use Lexington as an example. I think Buzz said something like 24 candidates, something like that. And the posted salary for that position was $260,000. So that, that was a high salary. And, we get 24 candidates. Doesn't matter how many we have. It's all about the quality, and you're only hiring one.
Okay, thank you all. I appreciate the introduction. We will jump right into a few questions. I'm going to start with Councilor Chase.
Thank you. And I do have a question, or perhaps two, but I'll not direct it to any one of you in particular, but please feel free to field it as you choose. Most Massachusetts municipalities are towns governed by select boards and administered by town administrators. Bridgewater is somewhat distinct by virtue of our town council and town manager structure. Can you briefly discuss examples of our particular structure among clients for whom your firm has successfully placed candidates?
Sure. Buzz or Bob, do you want to jump on that before I jump in?
You start and let us think.
All right. So,
Yeah.
that may be a little unique in Massachusetts. Certainly, we've worked with town and city councils. When we work in the city format, of course, that's a city manager typically. In New Hampshire, we have the same format as you folks. We have many that are town councils. And then they have a town manager form. So it's not unusual for us. Off the top of my head, I mean, we do so many of these, I can't tell you specifically which ones we've dealt with that form of government. To us, once we understand the intricacies of the community, that's really kind of the important thing. And then understanding the experience that the particular candidates bring to the table, that's what's most important. Your form of governance is the form of governance, and we just have to find somebody that fits into that, the best. It's all about fit. Bob or Buzz, did you have anything?
Let me follow up. Fred, great question, by the way, and I appreciate your history with the town, and you've been on council, all that good stuff. So anyway, one of the things that we find interesting, and I'll answer the question about styles of government like yours. The majority of them that we've done, as Alan suggested, are either New Hampshire, Connecticut, or Rhode Island. We did South Kingston. They had a council form of government. We did Winchester, Connecticut, which has a council form of government. In fact, they're a little different. They're very partisan. in their form of government. They had 9 councilors in Winchester like you. I'm sorry, Bloomfield, Connecticut was the big one. They had 9 councilors, but they're very partisan. Whoever's the majority has 6 council seats in terms of the political party, Democrat or Republican, and it tends to switch. And I can tell you, Fred, it's an interesting dynamic when that happens in a community. So direct answer to your question, we have had experience with that. The other thing I will tell you is we've had success in recruiting folks who come from city government, who work with councils. One who comes to mind was the former chief of staff in Salem, Massachusetts, worked for Mayor Kim Driscoll. And she was chief of staff, and she was working for a city council, and then she became a town manager in Bedford, Massachusetts. Similarly, we had an individual who worked for the city, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Revere, maybe Everett, but she became a town manager in Sudbury through our recruitment effort. And now she's the town manager in North Andover. So the point of all of that is the skillful people can adopt to that form of government, the type of government you have. It's not rocket science. I get the whole idea of the town meeting, and people who have never dealt with town meeting find it difficult. I don't see that difficulty because you're dealing in a town meeting form of government. You're dealing with an elected board, the selectmen, just like you'll be dealing with an elected board, the councilors. So I don't see that as a big impediment. And in fact, our experience has been that it works very well.
Very good.
Thank you all. I'm going to move to Councilor Robinson. Councilor Perry, if that's okay, for the next question.
Right ahead.
Okay, great. Regarding networking, guys, please describe how extensive your firm's professional network of municipal contacts are, and how will your firm use them to bring as many qualified candidates as possible to Bridgewater for our town manager position?
So first of all, I mean, we have a lot of people that follow us. So, you know, they'll see it on our website as well as all the advertising that we do. We also have a kind of a ready-made data bank, if you will. So in every one of these recruitments we do, and I'll just use Lexington as an example, there's only one person that was picked for that. And that may be because of a specific fit they had with that community. So that means that there were other people that were very well qualified that maybe didn't fit as well as that chosen candidate. So we go immediately to those folks, and we know who they are, and we directly recruit. For instance, the person that just went to Lexington, we directly recruited out of Connecticut, someplace 10 or 12 years ago. We recruited him to Danvers. He saw the posting for Lexington, and he contacted me to talk more about it. And that's what happens very often. These folks know how to get a hold of myself, Bob, or Buzz. And then Bob and Buzz, because of their engagement at the local level, and because they do so many of these recruitments, they know who's out there, and they know who the deputies or the assistants are now too, which we're falling back more and more on those folks as, you know, as a certain generation ages out here. There have been so many retirements. So that's really how we kind of do the direct recruitments. I mean, we've recruited people out of Florida that we know are out there. We've had successful recruitments with that, certainly from one state to another. And that's because I know that people, you know, tend to want somebody from the state that they're in. So people in Massachusetts would prefer somebody from the Commonwealth. But we can point to many success stories where we've brought someone from another state in New England. And, you know, again, I'll use the Danvers person that we moved from Connecticut. You know, those are great success stories. Portsmouth, Rhode Island, another place where they have a town council and town manager. And in fact, it is partisan politics there. They told me when I went in, this was probably 12, 13, 14 years ago, they said I'd never get them to agree on a candidate. Well, they agreed on a candidate, and the candidate they agreed on happened to be a captain in the U.S. Navy assigned to Brussels. He was assigned to NATO in Brussels. And they didn't know why I brought him in for an interview. And by the time he left that day, he was their number one choice, and he's still their manager. So, you know, we're not just looking within local government either. We're also looking at what we would call non-traditional candidates.
Thank you for that response. We'll go to Councilor Robinson next.
Sorry, toggling between screens. So community input and engagement is incredibly important for us as we embark on this search. There has been a lot of attention on looking for various types of candidates and making sure that we're being really reflective of the various constituents that get involved, whether it's the school committee to other organizations and then just groups of citizens that are very involved in terms of how we're developing in the town and going forward. Would love to hear a couple of specific examples, both quantitative as well as qualitative, where you gathered input from the community, and then how did you use those insights?
Well, it's actually hard to do a specific example. I can, but we do that in every recruitment that we do. Using Lexington, very diverse community. They have, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think that they have like 75 committees of the town.
Yep.
Very engaged community. So, what we did there is we did a lot of interviews. We interviewed staff. We interviewed each one of the select board members. We talked to the schools. We did 2 listening sessions. One, I think it was in the morning or in the earlier afternoon, so that we could get people that might be available during the day. And then we did another one in the evening for people that might not be available during the day and would be available in the evening. And we also open up an email address that allows anybody to submit feedback to us on what they'd be looking for in a candidate, or to tell us things that they think we ought to know about the town as we progress through this. So those are, between the interviews, the listening sessions, and the email input that we get, boy, that's sure a lot that we can learn about your community. And then how do we use that? Well, at the front end, we use some of the information we gain initially to develop what we call a community profile and challenge statement. So that's kind of serves, well, you're in marketing, so it's all about kind of attracting the right people to the job. So that's part of what the profile does. It profiles your community. Why is it special? Why should people want to work there? But the other thing it also does is it puts out some of those things, those recurring themes that we're hearing when we do our interviews, when we do our listening sessions, so that people don't apply for the job if they don't think they're a good fit, because that's not going to work for anybody. And it just reinforces to the potential candidates and the candidates what it is you're looking for. And then as we move through the process, we use that as a screening mechanism. Our filter gets finer and finer as we go because we've got more input. And it also helps us develop essay questions. So the essay questions actually come through all of that listening that we've done, because those become the topics that we know are important to you folks. And then we're further able to refine that when we do our phone interviews. And that's before anybody even comes to your screening committee. So that's generally how we do it. We do that pretty much in every recruitment that we do.
Yeah, if I could, Counselor, the other thing that's important, and I'm very glad to see that you've included Tim on your committee here. We always want involvement from the school side. As you know, that circle of money is split pretty evenly between the school side and the town side, in some cases a little more on the school side. So it's important, very important to us to have that connection with the school side, because we want to learn what their needs are so we can impart that knowledge to the next successful candidate and how that relationship works. And it seems to work well in Bridgewater at this point. But we want to accentuate that with our candidates, that it's important to the community that the schools and the town have a solid relationship going forward. Now, that's not always the case, as you well know, in many communities, but we think that's important. The other thing I'll talk about a little bit is we always want to interview individually your department managers. And that's Buzz and I coming out to the community and sitting down individually with the department managers, anonymously, in terms of who we talk to and those type of things. But it is the managers, and we don't We don't go around and say, the public works director told me this is a problem in town. We don't do that. It's part of our information gathering that we think is critical, that we get from your department managers, from others in the community. Ellen talked about the open meetings we have at residents in the community. That's all part of the mix as we try to define and refine who the potential candidates could be and who and what type of attributes that candidate has to have to succeed in Bridgewater. So those are important components for us. And I can tell you, as Alan suggested and Buzz, we just left Lexington. We had a long discussion with the school superintendent over in Lexington about their relationships. And I'll tell you why, Tim, you can appreciate this. They're talking about building a $600 million high school. I'm glad it's not my issue at this point. It's important to get the perspective is what I'm saying to you.
Thank you all. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fitzgibbons for his question.
Yes, thank you. Mine's about the implementation plan and the schedule. All of our respondents here seem to indicate about a 3 to 4 month process for onboarding a new town manager. So given that timeline, I've got a couple questions here. Is that a fair assessment, that timeline, 3 to 4 months? What's the critical path you see in that timeline? And then what actions could the town council take to either minimize that timeline, or what actions might they engage in that would significantly lengthen that timeline?
That's a good question, and I'm happy to answer that. So we like to move through these processes, what I call deliberately. We don't rush, we move deliberately through them. So the first thing, we like to see the ads run for 30 days. That's almost always a given. So the sooner we get the ad placed and the profile done, the sooner that 30 days begins. So we like to just jump right on it and get those interviews done, the interviews with each individual counselor, the interviews with your department heads and whatnot, so we can build that community profile, because we like that available when we place the ad, because the ad will direct them, the ad's just so many words, and then the ad will direct them to our webpage, our recruitment webpage, where they'll be able to see the full community profile. There'll be links to various things off of your webpage or to various other things that would help inform the candidate or attract the candidate in both ways. So that's critical. So then that runs for 30 days. And then really the next step after that is, us making some cuts down to the phone interviews. That's all on us. That we can do all of that stuff pretty quickly. So once the 30 days closes, typically we've got our phone interviews done within 2 weeks. And then we're really ready at that point. And during that time, we're doing the listening sessions. We've got the email going. We can be meeting with the committee to kind of determine process and next steps. Because the next step would be for us to bring, resumes, submittals for what we would call the top tier candidates. It might have been like a dozen. It might be a dozen or so. And we kind of walk them through, who they'd like to see for their interviews. And, we usually try to give them significant direction. So it's all into that scheduling. So the sooner that we can get some dates for those types of things, for the screening committee interviews, and then for the council interviews, that just all makes it flow. So we're not waiting on anybody. We can do our job and we can get candidates to you through our process within 60 days. So then we usually allow about 30 days for the council, the hiring body, if you will, to kind of do their thing. We facilitate those interviews with you folks. You need to deliberate. So that takes that takes us up to like 90 days. And then you've got the conditional offer, which we can facilitate very quickly. And we do a very comprehensive background investigation. We may do 100 background investigations a year. Some people hire us just to do backgrounds for police chiefs, fire chiefs, finance people, town managers, even if we didn't do the process, if they did it themselves. So that takes about 2 weeks to do that process, to do that background. During that time, we would expect to be helping you negotiate the final terms of employment. And then you're just ready. all up to how much time, how much notice they have to give their employer. Did that answer your question, Councilor Fitzgibbons?
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take us home here with the last question. So it's important to all five of us that transparency and alignment with community expectations is at the forefront of this search. Can you talk a little bit about how you all can ensure that? And then also with that, any marketing materials that you may be able to develop for the public consumption as well, too?
So, as far as marketing materials, that's really the advertisement, which is obviously public. We would send that to you to have you posted on your website, along with the profile. The profile sometimes runs to 5 or 6 pages. There are photos interspersed to for that would help attract candidates. So that's all very transparent. In most places, we kind of depend on the screening committee to maintain transparency with the community as far as scheduling their meetings and whatnot. We're very familiar with Mass Open Meeting Law, so we can help the screening committee with that if they're not as familiar. So we do encourage that the preliminary interviews are done in executive session, because we don't want to lose candidates, because most of these people will be employed, hopefully happily employed, and if their names are revealed, it may jeopardize their employment. So we try to keep the candidates confidential for as long as we can, and I think that many candidates out there know us, and they know that we'll do that, and that's why they'll apply. So we can be as transparent as you would like to be. Dates can be posted and whatnot. Obviously, meeting minutes under the open meeting law requirements. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's really up to whatever your standard is. We can certainly take care of that.
Al, could I just follow up for a minute? And Paul, is that okay if I follow up?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Just one comment about the whole marketing, and Councilor Robinson, this is probably directed at you. I think I saw that we did send you the Lexington profile in your packages, so you can see that's what we consider our marketing tool for the community. But here's the key to the way we market places. We will produce that document, and it's pretty flashy, and people are going to know Bridgewater. People in the business know Bridgewater's open. But what we like them to do, those candidates, is actually research the community. Do some work. Don't let us tell you everything about the community. You tell something to us about the community that you like and why you're applying. So we want them to do some work. And part of that work is, Alan didn't mention it, but we do essay questions for our serious candidates, because we want them to do some homework. And it'll be a question, a generic question. It's not just specific to Bridgewater, but we want to see their knowledge. And if they need to do some investigation into how Bridgewater is handling that, then show us in a written format how you would address that particular issue, utilizing some of the ways Bridgewater, not solving their problem, but how would you do something to solve that problem, given what you know about the way Bridgewater attempted to solve it. So that's an important part for us in screening out candidates, finding out who is really serious. We don't want job seekers. We want somebody who wants to be the town manager in Bridgewater.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bob. Thank you. And I would just say that most of the essay questions, if we do between 3 and 5 essay questions, the bulk of them are specifically targeted around Bridgewater issues. There may be kind of a generic managerial one in there. And I'd like to think that throughout the process, like Bob said, we don't kind of give it all up. We retain some information so that we can get that out of them, maybe even in the phone interview, because that's really when we can determine who's engaged and who isn't in this process. Because the last thing we want is for your screening committee or for your council to fall in love with a candidate just to have them not be serious at the end and walk away. That's a fail. So we want to make sure that everybody is engaged, has some, has put some effort into this process, because they should, if they want the job, they should be willing to exert a little effort to get it. And we look
Right.
for those opportunities to check that.
And Paul, if I may, the word is out that this is a quality community, a good job. You have a very solid charter. You have a double A bond rating. You have so much going for you that Bob and I have been contacted by folks, 2-3 weeks ago, when Mike was leaving. People knew that there was going to be a search. They thought perhaps if we were going to be the selected firm, they wanted to let us know that they're interested in the community. So in terms of marketing, it's happening already. The community, the folks that are interested in moving are looking at your website. They're looking at the community. They're driving through town. They're checking it out. So it's happening already, and you should be proud of that. That there are folks that are very keen on getting their name in the process here.
Great.
Thank you, Buzz. Maybe that explains the extra traffic that's been in town lately. I just want to wrap up by thanking you all for attending the meeting tonight and answering those questions, giving a great introduction. So we appreciate you being here, and look forward to being in touch with all of you.
Thank you and good luck, whatever you
Thank you,
decide.
Paul. Thank you.
all.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
And Debbie, I know we have a few minutes here before we start the next one at 7:45. So we'll give it a couple minutes.
Yep. And Richard White is in the waiting room.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, Debbie, I have 7:45. We can
All
let
right. Here
Richard in.
comes Richard White. He's all set. Paul, he's in the room.
Thank you, Deborah. Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure.
My name is Paul Murphy. I serve as the Vice President of the Bridgewater Town Council and Chair of the Ad Hoc Preliminary Screening Committee for this search. I have with me 5 members of the search committee who will quickly introduce themselves to you. We'll then turn it over to you to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and your company, roughly about 10 minutes or so. And then the committee members each have a question that they would like to ask of you.
Sure.
We have roughly 45 minutes of time scheduled for this, and we'll take it from there. So as I mentioned, my name is Paul Murphy. Again, I serve as the Vice President of the Bridgewater Town Council. I've been on the council for 2 years now, and I will pass it to Councilor Chase.
Thank you very much, Paul. And good evening, Mr. White, and welcome. My name is Fred Chase. I'm a member of the Bridgewater Town Council. I'm a district councilor for District 3. I've been a member of the town council for about 6 years now. I've been a resident of Bridgewater for about 36 years. I'm in recent years a retiree. I had worked for many years in the city of Boston and commuted back and forth from Bridgewater. Um, on the council, I also serve on the Community and Economic Development Committee and the Rules and Procedures Committee of the council. That's about all I have, but once again, I welcome you here and I thank you for your appearance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Councilor Robinson?
Hi, good evening, Mr. White. Susie Robinson. I am a counselor at large, and I have been a Bridgewater resident for about 12 and a half years. I also currently serve as the chair of the Community and Economic Development Committee of the council, and I have served previously on our financial committee for the town, as well as our ad hoc master plan committee. So nice to meet you, and thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Nice to
And
meet
Dr.
you.
Perry? Oh, excuse me, Dr. Perry.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. White. I'm the current president of the council. I'm a local chiropractor. I'm born and raised in Bridgewater, so got a lot of deep roots here. Been on the council between 6 and 7 years with a small break in between. Involved in downtown revitalization subcommittee, community economic development. So we got our hands on a lot of different cookie jars here on the council and our subcommittees. But nice to meet you. Look forward to hearing from you tonight.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Hello, Tim Fitzgibbons here. I'm chairman of the Bridgewater Rainham Regional School Committee and just fifth member here on the screening committee to help move things along. I did serve on the town council for about 10 or 11 years and was involved the last time we actually hired a town manager. So bring all that experience to the table and we're excited to hear from you. Thank you.
You nabbed a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons. Mr. White, before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to make you aware that there are members of the public who are attending the meeting tonight via Zoom. And the meeting is also being recorded to be shared at a later date as well, too.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I know a little bit something about Bridgewater because my youngest spent 4 years there at Bridgewater State University. So I was there quite a bit, mostly at the grocery stores, trying to keep her away from the liquor stores. But I had some familiarity with Bridgewater. My name is Rick White. I'm the principal partner for the consulting firm of Grew White Consulting, LLC. We are a full-service consulting firm specializing in local government recruitment and evaluating a municipality's organizational effectiveness. As a firm, we've been active for 25 years. I know you have my proposal. I thought I'd give you a brief summary of what it entails. It won't be detailed, but it may give you a sense of how we may be different from others. We invest a lot of our consulting effort regarding the recruitment on understanding the community we serve. We believe an effective recruit requires more than finding qualified applicants. We go to great lengths to ensure we recommend candidates that fit the community and that are qualified. Finding someone who has the right qualifications and experience is not a real heavy lift. Finding someone whose style and approach to the work and that will gel with the community is the real challenge. A lot of recruitment firms will place someone who's highly qualified but is incompatible with the community, either towards the style or how they view the job or how they view their role. Tonight you'll meet with 3 excellent firms. Any one of them will serve you well. We believe that how we approach the work, especially in the beginning, sets us apart from the others. We view the beginning work similar to farming. We use a farming metaphor. In order to get a good crop, you're supposed to put all your effort in preparing and tilling the land making sure that it's fertile and ready to receive the seed, and really growing the plant, although it requires maintenance and work, isn't as important as the work that you do before that. And that's what we really do that's different. So how do we do our recruitment? We meet early with the town council and the screening committee for direction. We set up meetings with department heads and organizational leaders, including union members, to get their feedback as to what they think the organization's needs are and the challenges, and what type of leader manager they believe is needed. We ask each town council member and screening committee member to identify community leaders that aren't holding elected positions that they believe have an important insight into the recruitment and what Bridgewater needs. We write up a synthesis of the feedback we receive from each of those two groups and send it or get it to the town council and the screening committee. And then we sit down with each town council member and each screening committee member and review our findings and get their feedback. We believe the manager, to be successful, needs to meet, identify, and satisfy a number of communities. And we believe that those three groups are the critical groups that will allow us to understand the community better, what some of its challenges are, what some of the issues are that the new town manager will deal with, and be able to put it in a form that's understandable and relatable. I've given you examples of the product that we produce. It's in the back of our proposal. We believe that this gives us a great understanding of Bridgewater, its community, governance, and operational culture, while identifying important issues needing to be addressed by the next Bridgewater town manager. Generally, that takes us about 2 weeks. Simultaneously, we develop advertisement and work with the screening committee and the town council to identify an advertisement strategy. In the proposal, I listed a number of resources that you can pick. At minimum, we recommend that you advertise in the MMA and ICMA job websites. From all the information and the interviews we gather, we develop a brochure or a profile. I have a mailing list of anywhere between 300 and 500 potential candidates. We mail it to it. I'll be square with you. It's largely a marketing issue and piece for the community, for our firm, but the opportunity. We try to keep it as simple and as straightforward as possible. Generally, we're trying to contact busy executives and we want to catch their attention so that they come to us and talk to us, not necessarily provide them with lots of details and inundate it. They're not interested in that. Most of our work comes from networking. I was a manager, and all of the associates and my partner were managers in Massachusetts for approximately 40 years. We have lots of contacts in New England and Massachusetts. I had a very, very well-noted and respected internship program. I probably have about 20 to 25 former employees that are now sitting managers all throughout the country and in New England. We use that network and people that we've recruited, as well as people we know in the industry, to network and begin to identify potential candidates, and we aggressively pursue them. Most really good managers aren't looking for a job. And it's really up to us to convince them that, one, they are a good match for Bridgewater, and Bridgewater is a good match for them. Because we've been around so long, we believe that we understand that the people we talk to understand that everything that we do is in confidence. We have their trust. They see us as honest brokers. And the candidates understand that when we approach them and we tell them they might be a good fit, we have a really good understanding of the community. Our candidates know we view them as a customer. We take the time and make the effort to thoroughly screen and prepare them for the process, either with the screening committee and the school committee, with the town council, sorry. During our process, if you look in the back of our proposal, you'll see some synopsis or synthesis that we've done from the feedback. We share that with the serious candidates. We generally have a questionnaire based on some of the community priorities. We ask for a list of selected accomplishments, and writing samples, and we scour the internet to try to get a sense for presentations that they've made in public, so we can figure out, whether they would make a good standing presentation to Bridgewater and to the community. Additionally, I've been known to, especially if the community they work in is accessible, go to the community, grab a cup of coffee, sit around, start networking with individuals in the coffee shop, and try to get an understanding for how they see the community and how they see their manager. We try to recommend between 8 and 10 candidates for the screening committee to interview. We attend all the meetings of the screening committee, organize the committee, provide a list of potential questions. Then we sit down with the committee and try to revamp the questions so that they're Bridgewater specific, so that the committee can glean whether or not the candidate has done their homework, has a true understanding of the community, and is worthy of their consideration. We repeat the same prep process with the town council and the candidates. When we get to the finalist process, we recommend the council interview at least 3 to 4 candidates. We also are so confident in our process and the work that we do in the farming in the beginning, is that we offer an 18-month guarantee. Never in the 25 years that we've been doing this has a client needed to claim that. Most of our recruitments have spent long and successful careers in the communities that we've served. That's a general outline, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have as a result of this, and anything else that you have in mind. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. White. I will pass it to Councilor Chase first.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you, Mr. White, for that introduction to your firm. We certainly appreciate that background information. My question is this: many Massachusetts municipalities are towns which are governed by select boards and administered by town administrators. Bridgewater is somewhat distinct by virtue of our town council and town manager structure. I'm wondering if you can briefly discuss any examples of our particular governance structure among the clients for whom you have successfully placed candidates.
Sure. The town of Winthrop has a town council. The town of Southbridge also has a town council. They actually hired us twice during the 25 years here. We also get a lot of repeat business from communities who enjoyed working with us and enjoyed our product. It is very different. The dynamic, the relationships that you forge, the politics of it are much different. And, generally councils are larger than boards of selectmen, and it requires a manager who is capable of, building strong relationship, is accessible, and understands that everybody needs the same information, that everybody needs the same attention, and they're only going to be successful if the town council is successful. Right now, the Southbridge town manager that we recruited is doing incredibly well. That's a community that's had a lot of turnover, and very volatile, and has had a lot of difficulties. We've had a lot of experience coming into communities that have had difficulties retaining managers, having followed bad recruits and found someone good. Provincetown is an example. It may not be a council manager form, but it probably went through a manager once a year for a good number of years. They now have a great town manager who loves the community, is part of the community, and they love him. Shirley, Massachusetts, which is a small community, had incredible turnover with their town administrators. It required that we understand, in all of these instances, understand the nuances of the community, the culture of the community, and convey that to the and test that with the candidates to make sure that they're ready for it and capable of it. And I think that's what would serve a council manager form town manager well, is the process that we do.
Very good. I thank you very much for that response.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass it to Dr. Perry for the next question.
Well, thank you very much. You mentioned it in your introduction here, Rick, but in regarding networking, please describe how extensive your firm's professional network of municipal contacts are, and how will your firm use them to bring as many qualified candidates as possible to Bridgewater for our town manager position?
Well, I know every sitting manager and assistant in Massachusetts. I've either worked with them or they've worked for me. We do a lot of recruiting. The same is true in New England. If you look at my resume, you'll see that I was an officer in the Massachusetts Municipal Association. I was also vice president of the MMA. I have a large network in Massachusetts that I knew then, and I've stayed in touch with, and am current with. Like I said, I probably had, in the course of 20 years, almost 20 years in Lexington, I probably had about 30 interns. About 20 of them are sitting managers throughout the country. And, based on those relationships, I don't necessarily call them and ask them, would they be interested in Bridgewater? I basically ask them for help in recruiting and say that I have this opportunity, and I give them some brief background about the community and what some of the issues are and what some of the culture is, and ask them, to make recommendations. And then, at the end of the conversation, if I think that there's a match, I'll say, and by the way, if you're interested in this, I'd love to talk to you about it a little bit. But, we also get play with our mailings. We mail out, as I said, 500 emails, letters asking people to think about it. We have a website that we post openings on, and the profile on. Outside of I grew up in Massachusetts, and I cut my teeth as a manager in Massachusetts. Even though your council manager form and there's council manager form in other parts of the state, you have to be really careful. New England and Massachusetts in particular has a very, very different culture, governance culture, than most of the rest of the country. And every community within Massachusetts is unique. They all see themselves as unique. They have all have their own cultures. So although we will recruit outside, and I mean, in Falmouth, we recruited a fellow from Georgia who's doing incredibly well there, following a tumultuous experience by his predecessor. But by and large, it takes a certain personality and style to be successful in Massachusetts. I mean, you have to be accessible as a manager. You know, I always giggle when I hear, you know, run government like a business. If you were the CEO in a business and some citizen called up and said they want to talk to you for 10 minutes, the CEO would say, talk to my secretary, or talk to so-and-so, talk to my PR. In Bridgewater and every place I ever worked, you have to make yourself accessible. You have to listen, you have to understand. And those are the, I mean, even with the council manager form, you know, those are the type of people we look for. They got to love the work.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. Mr. White, we, as I'm sure every community feels, very invested in this search, and there are so many different constituents and a lot of priorities and different initiatives going on that need a lot of attention and deep experience. Because of that, there's a lot of attention on this search. I'd love if you could share a couple of examples, specific examples where you have utilized qualitative as well as quantitative outreach to community members. And then how do you use those insights in your search?
Well, you know, I went to great lengths to explain, you know, you giving me your referrals to people in the community and interviewing and outreach to them. I usually ask them if there's anybody I should be talking to other than this list. That helps me a lot. I've helped search committees develop surveys that are directed, that are focused, and that are helpful to this screening committee understand what the community's priority is, and you know, laid out in a matrix form, you know, the feedback and the data that comes from that. Additionally, I've helped communities like Orleans develop forums. The screening committee develop a forum, a public forum, in which there's a series of questions that were already predetermined by the screening committee to ask people to participate and ask, and recorded that. And again, you know, develop some sort of matrix and compilation of the feedback we received. That's primarily, you know, what we've done. I'm not sure you can do much other than that.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Yes, thank you. My question's on the implementation plan and the schedule here. And it seems like everybody we've gotten proposals from is it process on this, and given that, I have a couple of questions on that. Is that timeline a fair assessment? What's the critical path on that timeline for, you know, getting to a result, a good result as quickly as we can? And then how can the town council either shrink that timeline, or what actions might they take that might unfortunately expand the timeline? on how long it takes.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that the screening committee has control over, the preliminary aspects and everything that goes up to recommending the finalists. I need 6 weeks. I can get all my stuff done in 6 weeks and pretty much beat the bushes and make a determination as to, the pool and the quality of the pool. It really is dependent upon the screening committee, the rest of the schedule. I think I put a 13-week schedule in there. And the challenge that you're going to have is that we're going to start this, and in the middle of the process is going to be Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and all the other holidays in between that demand the attention of citizens and boards and employees. In my experience, both doing recruitment and being a manager during this time, sometimes it's really hard to gather a quorum of the screening committee because of so many other obligations that they have during that time. So a lot of the rest of the schedule depends on the screening committee. I try really hard, even when I'm working with the screening committee, to make sure that I work closely with the president of the town council so that there's some general communication about where we are with the process, and how it's going, so that the town council president can do his or her job communicating with the rest of the council where they are. I'm very accessible. I keep my cell phone with me at all times. I answer it, and I'm very responsive to questions. So I try to really, in a general sense, connect the council through the president of the council with the work that the screening committee's done. And if there are any issues that come up from the council, I would probably hear about it iteratively and incrementally as the process is going, and could make adjustments that way. I can't think of anything that's happened in the last 25 years with the recruit where a governing board, an appointing board, has requested or asked something that has delayed the process significantly.
Thank
I
you.
hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Mr. White. I'll take us home from the committee and ask the final question. All 5 of us want to ensure the transparency in alignment with community expectations throughout this process. Can you talk a little bit about how you can ensure that, and then also any of the marketing materials that your company will provide to the citizens to engage them in the process?
Well, I'll work with you in that regard. I'm your staff. I'm your conduit, and I will play any role that you want with the community. I've developed periodic press releases. I'm a little reluctant to share extensive details about a recruit because the candidates that I recruit have a lot at risk. I insist on confidentiality, and I promise them confidentiality. And I will tell a bunch of goofy stories to you guys, like the time I did a recruitment, and one of the members of the screening committee was at a party in the western part of the state, started talking about in general about some of the some of the candidates that they're interviewing, and described one of them that she had fallen in love with so much that someone from that person's community was there and knew exactly who it was. So, I try really hard with the screening committee, but there are periodically we can set up a schedule for press releases, and, to be put on the web and to be given to the local newspaper. If you want to have a public hearing about where you're at and what your findings are, in terms of, some of the issues and some of the challenges, I'm happy to help you with that. But largely I'm your conduit and I'm your staff, and you know the community better than I do, as much as I pretend to know something about it. And I'll craft whatever process and whatever strategy you want to do. I can't think of much else that we could do. You don't want to give them the details of the candidates. But I think if you do a forum, if you do a survey, that's part of the transparency process as well. If you post the results of both, that again is part of the process. I'm reluctant to tell anybody when you're screening candidates, because I don't want them coming down and taking photos of them. And I've seen it all, but that's about it. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. At this time, the committee has no further questions, so we want to thank you for attending the meeting tonight and sharing the information about your services, and then answering the questions that the committee had as well too.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, it looks like we have about 12 or so minutes before the next and final company comes on, so we'll give it those 12 minutes just to stick to our timeline here. Okay, Debbie, I have 8:30, if you wouldn't mind letting in our last group.
Sure, I have John Petrin and Julie Jacobson. John is in the room, and I believe Julie is also.
Yes.
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome all. My name is Paul Murphy. I serve as the Vice President for the Bridgewater Town Council and Chair of the preliminary ad hoc committee screening for this town manager position. Just as a quick rundown for you all, I will pass it around to the committee of 5 members to introduce themselves to you all quickly. I will then turn it over to you all to give a brief introduction, maybe 10 minutes or so of yourselves and the company. And then we will pass it around to the committee members who each have a question that they would like to ask of you all. We have roughly 45 minutes together tonight. There are members of the public on the call, and the call is being recorded to be shared at a later date. We also have a few town council members who are on the call but not actively participating as well too, just for you all to be aware of. So I will pass it to Councilor Chase to introduce himself first.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good evening, John and Julie. Welcome. Very happy to see you here. My name is Fred Chase. I'm a district councilor on the Bridgewater Town Council. I've served on the town council for about 6 years. I've been a resident of Bridgewater for 36 years approximately. I retired in recent years, having worked most of my adult life in Boston and commuted back and forth from Bridgewater. On the Bridgewater Town Council, I serve on the Community and Economic Development Committee and the Rules and Procedures Committee. And that's about all I have to say, I think, but I welcome you here and thank you for your appearance.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Councilor Robinson?
Hi, sorry about that. I was looking for my mic. Good evening. I am Susie Robinson. I am a counselor at large, and I also chair the Community and Economic Development Committee. Bridgewater resident for about 12 years, and I got involved on the Financial Committee as well as served on the Ad hoc Master Plan Committee in town. So thank you for being here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. And Dr. Perry?
Muted.
You're muted.
Dr. Perry, you're muted.
Take 2, here we go. Hi, Julie. Hi, John. My name is Dr. Kevin Perry. I'm a local chiropractor here in Bridgewater, born and raised. I'm the current president of the Bridgewater Town Council, serving on the Downtown Revitalization Committee, Community Economic Development, a few different hands on a few different cookie jars. But I look forward to hearing from you both, and very nice to meet you both.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Perry. And Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Sure. Tim Fitzgibbons, chairman of the Bridgewater Rainham Regional School Committee, resident of Bridgewater. I also served on the town council for about 11 years and was very involved the last time we actually hired a town manager. So I guess that's why I was called back to help out on the screening committee.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbons, and I will turn it over to all of you to introduce yourselves.
Great, thank you. I'll start for the firm Community Paradigm. I'm John Petrin. Of course, Julie Jacobson is joining me this evening. We apologize. The principal of our firm, Bernie Lynch, is in another part of the world this evening, so was unable to join this evening. So I'll take the first piece of the discussion. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the town of Bridgewater, and we look forward to this discussion. Community Paradigm is a firm that was formed in 2014 by Bernie Lynch, and been doing searches, for communities since then. Actually, in the last 5 years, we've done about 60% of the searches in the state. So let me just talk about the principles you'll be involved with on this search. So we'll start with the managing principal and the founder of the company, Bernie Lynch. Bernie has had a 35-year career in local government, served in the town of Chelmsford
for over 20 years as town manager, and then the city of Lowell for 8 years. So he's certainly familiar with the council manager form of government, having served the city of Lowell for 8 years in that position. Bernie is also, well known in the States, and he also works with the MMA Suffolk program. So he's been a teaching professor for UMass and Suffolk for many years in the state, so highly involved. The second person will be Sharon Flaherty. Sharon is a principal in the firm, and she's the communications expert that will be assigned, to this job search for Bridgewater if we are chosen. So we're a little unique in the sense that we have a communications expert. So Sharon's been with the firm since the beginning, 2014. But prior to, she was in the private sector, a marketing communications officer for a couple of banking institutions, as well as serving in many capacities for daily newspapers, in particular the Lowell Sun. So as a reporter and an editor. So she's fully familiar with how local government works, having covered many municipalities during her career. But it's very helpful to have a person of that nature assisting us as, again, a communications expert. A lot of what we do, is seeking, searching, and talking to people. So she's heavily involved, like with our reference checks and background checks. And that takes a different skill, when we're doing that side of the search, and she's excellent at that. I'll be the third person involved. So again, my background is municipal government. I was involved for 40 years before I retired in 2019. So I retired as a town administrator in Burlington. I served in a couple of positions, but I also served as an assistant superintendent of schools for the city of Marlborough. So I was involved in the city format as an assistant superintendent of schools. I'm also today involved with the MMA Suffolk program. So I'm a senior fellow and certificate coordinator for the MMA Suffolk program in Massachusetts. So I work with, in each year, I'm working with 150 municipal employees who are seeking, to further their education in the municipal sector. So very involved with that. And again, I've been involved with Community Paradigm since 2019. And myself, I've been involved in about 40 searches, in that time. I also did the town of Winthrop. Back a couple of years ago, council manager forum. We've been involved with the city of Watertown and the town of Palmer. Bernie handled those searches. We collaborate on all our searches. And then the fourth person will be Julie. I'm going to ask Julie to introduce herself to you folks.
Great. Thank you, John. Good evening, everybody. So I am recently retired. I've been retired for about a year and a half, and I retired from the community of Auburn, where I was their first town manager, and it was a role that I held for 12 years. Prior to that, I was the assistant city manager in Worcester, which was a council manager form of government. And I worked for the city of Worcester for over 20 years. Almost 7 years as the assistant city manager. Prior to that, my experience was primarily in economic development in the city of Worcester. So again, I've had not quite as much as John, but almost moving on toward 38, 39 years in local government. And again, my forte was economic development, reorganization, and overall operations and administration of local government. I've been with the firm for about a year and a half since I retired, and I've probably been involved in about 10 town manager, town administrator searches since that point. I've also, as part of that, I was very active in the Mass Municipal Association, where I was on the board of directors for maybe 8 years. I was the president of the Massachusetts Municipal Management Association for 2 years. I probably hold the only title that did that for 2 years because of COVID. So my first year was COVID, And then I had the opportunity to serve another year as president, hoping that COVID would end. And of course, we all know it didn't. So I had another whole year. So 2 years as the MMMA president. And I also was one of the founders and the chair of the Women Leading Government Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Mass Municipal Management Association, where our group of women managers got together and formed a group where we held 3 to 4 events a year with the intent of trying to encourage women in all positions in local government to strive for higher positions, whether it be a department head or a supervisor and hopefully a manager in the long run, and trying to give them the resources and the networking that they need to encourage them to stay active in the profession. Thank
So
you.
you could probably see from the 4 resumes that are attached to the RFP we submitted, we're all very active, have been very active. Again, I'm a former president of the Mass Municipal Association and the Managers Association. Julie's talked about her involvement. And again, you look at Bernie's involvement, we've all been active in various groups, within the communities we've served. So we all hold master's degrees, in the field, and went to school pretty much locally, within the state. I went to Stonehill College, not too far from you. So we've been very active. And again, we're doing about 60% of the searches, in the state over the last 5 years. So we're ready to answer your questions. We provided a lot of information as to our process. Some of it is unique, to the firm, in the way we handle things. For instance, when you get your finalists, we'll do reference and background checks on all the finalists prior to the council getting to interview candidates. So we do a lot of background work in advance. You'll get that information from us, prior to you're going through the interviews. So we've, again, worked with so many firms. We're used to adapting. So when things come up, when questions are asked, or if you're looking to, do things a little bit different, we've done a lot of these things in many of our searches. Not every search is the same, because we like to make sure we're working with, the councils and the select boards we're working with to make sure you're happy with the process, that's occurring. And if there's ideas, the council wants to put on the table, we're willing certainly to address those and to do things in different ways, in order to make sure you're getting the process that you're seeking. The final decision is the council's decision. We're here to facilitate. We're here to recruit. And one of the things, we pride ourselves on as well is that we use the term hunters and trapsmen, and we're hunting for candidates. So when we go out, we will try to find candidates. We send an email when a position is posted. We send an email to all the managers and assistant managers in the state as to a position being posted. So it's not just an advertisement on the MMA. We're sending out information. We go out, we seek our candidates. We talk to a lot of people, and we work together as a team to see who we think would be a good fit and would be, interested in a community. So we work hard at seeking candidates for the community we're working for. So at this point, we'll turn it over to you, and we're certainly ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you all for that introduction. I'll turn it over to Councilor Chase for our first question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you both, John and Julie. There's certainly a great deal of direct firsthand experience among your staff, and we appreciate that. I do have a question related to the nature of Bridgewater's town governance. We, as you know, have a form of council manager, while a great many towns in Massachusetts actually conform to the town administrator and select board system. I'm just wondering if you can provide any particular examples of successful placement for your candidates in towns utilizing our form council manager governance?
Sure. It's interesting. I actually teach in the Suffolk program. I teach local government. I call it local government 101. So, I talk about this, and there's 15 communities in the state. There's 12 with a council manager format of your nature, which are still considered towns with the council manager. And then, of course, you've got the 3 additional Lowell, Worcester, and Lowell, Worcester, and Cambridge on top for 15 council manager forms in the state. So we have been successful in the last couple of years doing Watertown, Palmer, and Winthrop. So I think I mentioned that earlier. So we've been involved in a council manager format. We've also worked in East Longmeadow, at one point. And so these are recent searches we've done with Watertown, Winthrop within the last couple of years. So out of those 15, we've done several of those in the last few years. And of course, with 2 of our principals having worked in a council manager format, there'll be 2 of us who actually, have life experience, in your form, of government, with Julie and Bernie having been in a council, manager format. I've worked in a city, but in a mayor form, not in a council manager.
Well, that's very heartening to hear. I appreciate that response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
Thank you. In regards to networking strategies, guys, please describe how extensive your firm's professional network of municipal contacts are, and how will your firm use them to bring as many qualified candidates as possible to Bridgewater for our town manager position.
Julie, do you want to start on this one, and then I'll chime in afterwards?
Sure. So from my perspective, I recently retired. I've only been out of the industry for a year and a half, and I'm still very active in the MMA and the MMMA. So my contacts throughout the state include all of the city and town managers and administrators and assistant town administrators in every community. And I stay in touch with many of them. I'm still involved in some of the committees to stay in touch with them. And because I'm recently retired, I'm very familiar with and have worked with many of the existing town managers and administrators across the state that are still in those positions. For the firm as a whole, I would say, and John could speak more to this, that through John and Bernie and their connections with Suffolk and many other town managers prior to my term, that they're also actively in touch with many of the existing town managers that are out there, as well as many local town officials that are going through programs with the intent of rising to a assistant town manager or town manager position.
All 3 of us are still members of the Municipal Managers Association as retired members. So we're still active, in our association. We attend meetings from time to time. Bernie and I attend the MMA annual meeting as part of the Suffolk program. So I'm there representing, Suffolk University at the MMA annual meeting. But it's an opportunity to see a lot of people, within that 2-day period, as we're recruiting. And of course, that may be taking place during this recruitment, so, we see folks in that sense. As I mentioned in the intro, we have a database of every single manager and assistant manager in the state, where we send out an email. So when the search is ready, we send out notice to each of these managers out there. So Mr. Driscoll has been receiving those emails from me, for a number of years when these searches take place. And then again, through the Suffolk program and our other contacts, we know a lot of people. We know a lot of upcoming people, as well as folks who've been involved for a long time. So we use those contacts. We also have our database through our website, and we get a lot of hits on our website and on a regular basis as to people looking. So people know to go to the Community Paradigm website for the searches that are taking place at that point.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate the answer.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I'm going to talk about community involvement. As you can imagine, like most cities and towns, folks get very invested. We have a lot of different constituent audiences, and they would love for their voices to be heard. I'd love if you could share a couple of examples, both qualitative as well as quantitative, in terms of gathering community insight. And then how have you used those insights in your search?
So, first of all, I think, part of our proposal was a position statement that we put together. I think you can see it was pretty in-depth. It was the town of Winthrop, I think was the one we utilized. So Bernie and I were involved on that one for that search. But we'll talk to you folks. So one of the things we start with the beginning is we'll make sure we talk to each of the counselors. So we'll have an individual conversation with, usually 2 members of our team with each member of the council. Whether that's a select board or a town council, we want to talk to each of you individually. We'll come before your council in a council meeting so the public can see us as well. But we do it in different ways as well. So we can put together a questionnaire, that can be posted, that can be sent out through the town, posted on your website, asking questions about what are people seeking? What are the characteristics? A couple of things that, like when we talk to the counselors, we're gonna talk about several questions. One is, what characteristics are you seeking in your next manager? What's important, to each of you, and what's important to the community? We also want to know about your goals. We want to know about the council's individual goals, the council goals, and the town goals, that have been set. So we want to make sure that's incorporated in what we're doing. And then we're going to talk about projects. That's where we'll get to know a little bit more about what's happening in the community. Now, we'll go out, we'll meet with several of your department heads. Typically, police chief, fire chief, finance director, public works director. We go out and we actually meet, with these folks to get an understanding of what's happening in these departments. And we'll also meet with anybody else that, would like to meet with us. I always put out an email to all department heads. If you want to have a conversations, please let us know. We're open. We like to have conversations with folks. And if it's with the community, what we found to work best is a community survey. We've been in places where we've had 300 responses, and that's where having a communications team like we have comes in handy. We have two folks, in this case, it'll be Sharon, but they do a great job in taking all this in and putting it together in a document with all the comments that are being made so that we get to see the comments, from the team. And we'll also provide that information to the town, later on as to what people are saying, what people are seeking. So we ask those type of questions. We'll send out a questionnaire to department heads, talking about, what are some of the issues in your department? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? We all want to know our opportunities and challenges when you go into a situation. So we're trying to develop that. And I always say we're ombudsmen in this. So we work for you as the town of Bridgewater in this case, but we also have to be responsible to the people who are applying for these positions. We have to make sure we're honest up front, with the candidates and talk about, obviously the opportunities, but also the challenges. What do you need to go into? The last thing we want to hear is 3 months into the job, someone says to us, you didn't tell us about what was really going on here, and if there are some issues that need to be addressed, we want to make sure we're addressing those up front and letting people understand that, because you're, a highly evolved community, having a council, manager format, you're going to need people, someone who comes in, understands that, but also can come in and lead and understand the situations that they're going to be faced with. Julie, anything you want to add to that?
John, I think I think you covered most of it. I would just reiterate that it's really important to us to have those connections that John mentioned with the department heads and with the counselors to get a real good understanding of what your current situation is, what your vision is for the future and what specific projects you believe the next manager will be involved in. And that's what we can then communicate when we go out and recruit. So as John said, we pay a lot of attention to the input we receive from all of you, as well as all of your department heads. And as John said, also for the community survey, to make sure that we have a really good understanding of the community, your needs, your future visions and goals, and how we can incorporate that into our recruitment process.
And hopefully you could see that when you look at the position statement. You can look at our position, you can go to our website and see the, communities we're working on right now, from a small community like Lunenburg to a larger community. We try to make sure we're catching that, in these discussions, because we're going to be talking to the candidates. They're going to be calling us and saying, is this a good fit for us? Because every candidate wants to come in and make sure that this will be, a good location for them to relocate to.
Great, thank you.
you all. Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Sure. My question is on the implementation plan and schedule that you guys have proposed. I think with each of our respondents, we've seen about a 3 to 4 month process for onboarding a new town manager. Given that timeline, is that a fair assessment first that I made based on your experience? What's the critical path on that timeline? And are there things that the town council can do to accelerate the time frame, or things they might do that delays it a bit longer? Answer those.
Very good question. And what it comes down to is accessibility. We're committed to a schedule, but what we find is that when we're dealing with committees is getting people available. So if we're dealing with the screening committee, it's getting the availability of the screening committee to meet, to interview. It'll be so we're always working around other people's schedule. Our schedules are, we can understand our schedules better, but I'm doing a search in another community right now. And there was 3 weeks where the members of the committees were all separately out of town on business. So we had to, go a 4th week out to actually do interviews. So we lost basically 3 to 4 weeks in the process, not because of our side, but because of the committee side. So those are the type of things we'll work with. We try to make sure we're identifying the dates early, with the committees, with, a screening committee and then with the council, so that we can make sure we're meeting the deadlines as you see fit. So again, working that process, we talk about a 16-week process. That's what was in, our proposal, from when the point we're told, we're moving forward. It's about 16 weeks. We're going to spend several weeks. So the first couple of weeks, we're going to need to talk to 9 counselors. So now it's getting an email out to the counselors and setting up these dates, to set up Zooms with the counselors to have these discussions. So if we can move that forward, then we're constantly, moving the, we'll be on time with what we're saying. If it's taking time, that's an issue, with that. You're also going to be up against the holidays, in this discussion. We'll have to work around that. But pretty much, we'll work out with staff and with you, the timelines going forward. So once you choose the firm, moving forward, and if we're chosen, we'll sit down and talk about those timelines, based on that time frame there. We have the capacity, to do the search. And with having several of us involved, we're in pretty good shape to adjust, our timelines, with having, 3 of us who will be assisting with the recruiting side, on this. So, Julie, am I missing something or on that?
I think you covered it, John. Thank you.
Is that, Tim, does that fully answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. I'm going to take us home with the last question from the committee. We all as a committee would like to ensure the transparency and alignment with the community expectations throughout this process. Could you talk a little bit about your experiences with that? And in addition, any marketing materials that you use or have used in the past to engage the residents of Bridgewater?
Yeah, I think I kind of addressed that a little bit earlier, with the citizen survey. And we'll give you a suggestion as to what one can look like, but we'll work with you on the final product. We're always looking for your input, going through this. I think that's so key because I'm not picking your next manager. You are. So, I'm always saying to the committees I'm working with, whether it's a screening committee, the council or select board, are we providing what you need at this point in time for you to make your decision? We're going to give you information. Our role is to help you understand the candidates because we all have, you can Google any one of us and you're going to see some interesting articles, on any of us, based on, we held positions where we got to say no a lot. So one of our roles is to try to talk through those things. There are some people who have real issues in their past. It's for us to identify that with the screening committee, and it's for us to identify when something was politics. So we're trying to be transparent all the way through in our discussions with you folks. One of the things that, what we don't want to occur is that, same as I talked about with the candidates earlier, we don't want you hiring somebody and saying, why didn't you tell us about this situation, for this candidate, coming into this? So we're going to try to, provide information. But again, by us meeting with your department heads, by us meeting with each of the counselors individually, working with the screening committee and doing a citizen survey, and always taking emails and phone calls from people, who have comments or questions on the process. That's how we try to work, to make sure we're addressing every point, that the town wishes us to address going through this.
Thank
Julie?
you all for the responses. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for joining us this evening. Believe that's all the questions from the committee. So again, want to thank you as a whole and on behalf of the town of Bridgewater for being here tonight.
Okay, great.
Thank you for
And if
having
you have
us.
any questions, you know how to, get a hold of us. We're certainly ready to follow up at any point with any questions, that you may have. And in the end, we just want to thank you for this opportunity. We appreciate the discussion and we appreciate you thinking of us for, considering us for your next search.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Okay, that concludes our interview portion of the meeting. So we'll move on to item E, next steps. Just as a reminder to the committee and for folks that are still on the call with us, we will be meeting again next Tuesday evening. The meeting will be via Zoom. That I believe has already been posted, or if it has not been posted, will be shortly, Debbie. And link will be made available to folks to attend that meeting as well.
Paul, did you say Monday or Tuesday for the meeting?
I believe it was Tuesday, correct?
It was the
I-
28th,
I thought it
Monday.
was Monday. Yeah, it was Monday.
Okay.
Monday, the 28th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be posted tomorrow.
Okay, you're correct. Just checked. Thanks, Debbie. Okay, and moving on to item F, citizen comments. A reminder to folks that are still on the call, if they would like to make comments, we ask that you keep it to 3 minutes, and the committee will not be responding to any questions or concerns. Anybody from the public like to speak? I see a hand from Donna.
Hi, Donna Jewell, 50 Keith Place, Bridgewater. I think you had a lot of good information presented to you today. It was very, very interesting. No, you can't answer questions. My one comment or concern would be with the first firm, the fact that they recruited our former town manager away from us is a big concern of mine as a resident. That's all.
Thank you, Donna. Anybody else?
Paul, I don't see anybody else's hand up.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. So we will move on to Councilor Perry. I believe you'll have to adjourn the town council meeting since we opened that. Not
Yep.
sure.
So I will ask for a motion to adjourn the council meeting for this evening.
So moved.
Second.
And second,
I'll second.
all right. And all those in favor, I believe we need to do a roll call vote based on being on Zoom.
Yep.
Debbie, if you would.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Perry.
Yes.
And do I include Paul and, Mark and Mary?
Yes, and Sarah present on the
Okay.
as the meeting itself.
All right. Mr. Lindy?
If he's still on the call.
He is still on the call.
Oh.
Miss
Unmute yourself,
McGrath?
Mark, you might be muted.
Yes.
He might have stepped away.
Okay.
Well,
Well, that's
we have
fine.
a
We got
majority
majority
vote.
vote anyway, so.
Yep. All right.
All right, and then I will accept a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by
Third.
Mr. Gibbons, and we'll do a roll call vote, please, Debbie.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Miss Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, thank you all. Hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Next week. Thanks, guys.